reality of democracy is as like we barely know anything else, but considering how little we've lived in the greater scheme of things, right? It shows you how young our democracy is. And I feel like now as we become the adults of this generation, it becomes more of our responsibility, because obviously our parents grew up in a totally different setting, and you can see that they're grappling with it. They're trying to understand this whole democracy thing and make it work. But ultimately, we're the elders as we get older that are gonna have to make it work. What y'all think?
No, I think I agree in a way, because I feel like we've just been presented with this concept. I think it was Patrice Lumumba that said that when the African continent was presented with these like Western solutions to like the problems that we were having, whether they were political, whatever, right? We're just presented with a notion of democracy, and we're told, okay, this is what democracy is, and this is how you make it work, right? One, I find that really problematic, because we were not really given a choice in terms of deciding what we wanted, the way forward to look like for ourselves. We were just presented with a way forward that the West or everyone else was doing, and we were just expected to move forward with it, without being given a chance to decide, okay, as different tribes in South Africa, how are we going to move forward? And if you look at the institutions that exist, I think somebody raised this the other day. They were saying that the same parliament that our like representatives sit in is the same parliament that the apartheid government used to sit in and make those decisions that they made.
Same structure.
Exactly. So it's insane that we say we live in a democracy, but in terms of what's happening, it's still kind of the same. You look at the landscape, you look at like the environment, it's still the same. The inequalities, the same areas that were that experienced a lot of like inequality or like not really privileged are still the same areas that are facing similar challenges today. So I don't know. I feel like democracy is just like a concept that we've been presented with to kind of what's the word? When you're like
appease. So appease or bias.
Exactly. So that we think we exist in this amazing system where it's just fair and it's ruled by the people for the people, but in actual fact, it's not.
But then two questions come up. Two questions come up when you say that, my love. Like when you say that, do we agree that it's gonna take a while to come to get to a really post-apartheid South Africa, right? And maybe 26 years is not enough, right? That's the one question that comes to mind when you say that. And the other thing is, do we agree when we look at all the different political systems that we've tried as society, or as society, as the human race all across the world throughout history? Do we agree, Jorge, so far democracy might be one of the better ideas that we've come up with? Because we've tried like all these other situations, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, just before we go into those questions, that the subtle difference between apartheid government or an apartheid parliament and the government that we have now is the constitution that basically we created. That I mean, on paper, it's
supposed to reach it.
On paper, it's lauded as like one of the best constitutions in the world, one of the most egalitarian and free like constitutions in the world. The problem is like how it translates to real life. So, but let's go into the questions, right?
And I want to agree with you, V. My challenge with it, before I answer your questions, the challenge with the constitution is if it was a freestanding constitution and we were just ruled by it and it alone, maybe it would have been better, because there wouldn't be all of this other legislation that we have to look at from like 1980 Mamang, because all of those other acts that we are not really looking at, they still apply if you look at like the bigger picture of the law. The constitution is like the supreme. That's where we go when everything else has failed. But all of this other law, is what governs us at the moment until we get to the constitutional court. So, yeah, I don't know. I agree, with saying that it is it's excellent, like on paper, but in practice, we still have a long way to go. And just to answer your question, I believe that, like, I feel like with the idea of democracy is great. I mean, it's one of the few ideas that maybe have come up, and we are kind of trying to, like, that are trying to help us move forward as a world, in terms of if we're going to become like collaborators and a country that truly governs itself. I think it's a great concept in that in that sense. But like the people that we have in power, and I forget the first question that you asked, but the people that and please remind me, the people that we currently have in power are not really embodying the values that we think people that lead democratically would have. It's all about me. What can I get while I'm in power? And I think I'm not condoning any of that behavior, but I do feel like if you've been deprived for so long, right? You've experienced or you've lived in a space of lack, and you haven't had anyone to show you the leadership, around, how you can make things work in that setting. The minute you get into power, I think this is why they say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The minute you get into power, you want to make sure that you're set, your family's set. And this is what we're seeing, unfortunately. It's not about collaborating. Because if we work together and we really work together and we collaborated, then we really would be powerful, Please remind me what
the questions were. Yeah, the questions were, one, is 26 years enough? To balance out basically 400 years of all the other whack stuff.
Yes, 1652, colonialism through to apartheid.
No,
and the second one was the second one was, is democracy the best of what we've seen? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, like I said, with regards to the democracy one, I think it's one of the ideas that are workable, that could help us.
So it's a good idea, but the implementation so far.
Yeah, there's a problem with the implementation.
So far.
And then with regards to
the time, how long is it going to take? How long do you guys think it will be before we actually are implementing our constitution? Or it's not just a matter of time, it's also a matter of having the right people that are actually going to bring the full strength of our constitution to bear.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Like, my answer to that depends on who I'm talking to. Like, if I'm talking to an apartheid apologist, then I'm definitely like, yo, it's just been 26 years. All right?
Okay.
So you need to chill. You had 400 years to do your stuff.
Yeah.
You need to chill, give us time. So if I'm talking to an apartheid apologist, that's my angle. But if I'm talking in-house, we're talking with the family.
Head to the family.
If it's a family meeting, then I have to be like, oh, well, guys.
Yeah.
Y'all are chowing us. Team.
Yeah. No, because you know what I think, man? I think also when we think of the time, what we need to be factoring in is the psychological damage that was caused, right? Because the reality of it is psychological damage takes a lot longer to heal. You know what I mean? Like, because it happened even in the States when slaves were released, right? So one day you were a slave, you were somebody's property. The next day you were a so-called free man, right? Apparently some of these people were so distraught in terms of not knowing what they were going to do with their lives. They like, their minds were so damaged that they didn't know how to live life outside of being property, that apparently some of them actually went back to their slave owners to look for work, and in some cases actually ended up working for free again, even though they're supposedly free. You understand? So I think that's one thing that we always like to downplay as a country, but that we can't, because in order for democracy to work, you have to have people in a certain the psychological mind state. The psychological state of the people, right, has to be in a way where everybody feels like they have rights, right? And then you have a constitution that supports everybody's rights, right? And also you have politicians that are working with people's psychology from where they are, while they're implementing their rights or working as much as they can to implement their rights through the Constitution, right? If we're truly going to be a constitutional democracy, you know what I'm saying? Because it's what keeps coming up. If you've told people for years, for centuries, that they're Kafirs and they barely human, right? Explaining the concept of citizenship to them becomes very difficult, because a lot of black people in our country are still acting like how they were in apartheid, where you were seen as just a piece of labor. You only matter in South Africa if you're working for a white person.